Muy buenos días a todos. Welcome to everybody to this third edition of Afkar Debates. It's a great occasion for us, all friends of the Mediterranean and Euro-Mediterranean affairs. We are living through a very complicated period. And so we need to talk with each other. We need to know better how things are evolving in this part of the world, which is a bit of the epicenter sometimes and very often, unfortunately, of the world instability. And it is clear to everybody, it's on all our minds, that we are facing immense challenges, which are world challenges, but are eminently Mediterranean challenges as well. As especially in the area of the Middle East, we have these terrible things that have been evolving, a terrible situation that has gone Syria through a long period of time, and the need for reconstruction. And so happens with Lebanon. This is why we have these special sessions of the Afkar debates. Welcome to the third edition of the Afkar debates. And well, we have today this first session on Syria and Libya. It is based on the latest issue of the Afkar ideas, with a particular focus on the crisis and war in Lebanon. Despite the ceasefire agreement reached in November, tensions along southern border remain high, and the challenges ahead for Lebanon's recovery are immense. In the last occasion, the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria, increasing the complexity of the situation for the whole region and opening an uncertain political transition in all the countries around Syria itself. So to navigate these challenges, we have the two sessions of the Afkar debates that will focus on Syria's political transition following the fall of the Assad regime, exploring key challenges ahead and the role that the EU can play in supporting an inclusive transition and the challenges Lebanon faces as well in its long road to reconstruction. And well, in session one, we will focus on Syria, as I was saying, and with this serious political transition between hope and uncertainty. So that the toppling of the Assad regime marked, of course, a turning point in the Syria's political history, ending decades of authoritarian rule. Well, but however, of course, this transition is open to many, at the same time, hope and uncertainties, as the country faces profound political, social, and economic challenges. While the interim government has pledged to guide Syria toward stability and democracy, significant doubts remain about the future of governance, the protection of minorities, and Syria's reintegration into the international community. Among key challenges ahead are the reconstruction of state institutions, the implementation of transition and justice mechanisms, the drafting of a new constitution, and the organization of free elections. The role of religious and ethnic minorities is another pressing issue. Beyond political and social reforms, Syria also faces acute economic challenges, urging the lifting of international sanctions. As from the perspective of the European Union, the end of the Assad regime represents an opportunity to support an inclusive Syrian-led political transition. But a clear policy on Syria's transition has yet to be defined. What institutional reforms are needed for an inclusive and legitimate transition? Can diplomatic recognition encourage democratic reforms? Are the new government's promises of tolerance and inclusive genuine attempts to build a pluralistic Syria, or are these mere concessions to international pressure? How can civil society and grassroots movements contribute to shaping a sustainable post-conflict Syria? These and other questions will be addressed in the panel. I will not go into the second session that we will have a few days ahead, because today we are focusing on that, and we have a magnificent panel. We have Salam Kawakiwi, my dear friend Salam, who is the director of our Center for Research and Policy Studies in Paris. And we have Gabriel Garum, researcher at the University Pompeu Fabra in Barcelona. The whole thing under the director of this panel, by Natalia Sancha, who's a journalist, a very, if I may say so, seasoned professionally, a journalist who is has a profound knowledge on the region. And I hope that we will be able to express our ideas, our thoughts, and contribute to this debate that's now taking place in a way of policy-oriented. How should the European Union and European governments and Europeans in the governments in the region contribute to help our Syrian friends at this complicated transition that they will have to face. So thank you very much for being, all of you, with us, all people who are on the other side of the screen. Thank you very much for being with us. And now I give the word to Natalia Sacha, and not only the word in the session, so that you conduct it in the most positive way, as you will surely do. So thank you very much. Natalia, you have the floor and the session.
Merci, Florenza. Hello to everyone. Thank you for being here. Marhaba y bienvenidos a todos y todas. Indeed, thank you so much. Florenza has already stated some of the priorities who are on the agenda and in line for the many, many challenges that the new interim government is facing right now in Syria. We are talking about the collapse of over half century regime. We are talking about 14 years of war, and all this happened in 11 days. We are also in a very emblematic moment. Today, it's 14 years of war who are closing, at least for those who are in Dera. There is a debate if it's 15th of March or 18th of March. And also 2 days ago, I had placed the Brussels conference hosted by the European Union, pledging also 2.5 billion for Syria and the region. So many things are happening. Everything is going quite fast. And we'll not have time to see everything because we have 1 hour session. We want to reserve the last 15 minutes for all the participants who are on the other side of the screen. So you can also make your questions for our two very good speakers, Gabriel Garum and Salam Kawakiwi. Sorry. So Florenza already introduced them. I think just to mention a little bit the latest that have happened and that we can link from actuality to a little bit of the past and the main challenges that lie ahead. In Syria is a very complex situation. We have the local layer, the regional and the international, and this is reverberating in several events that are happening lately. We have witnessed on the regional international side the clashes between Lebanon and Syria and the border with the truce now. We have clashes in the north with the Turkish-backed militias, and we also have the occupation in the south and bombardments by Israel. So this is some of the areas that perhaps Gabriel and Salam want to dig more in. On the civil war component of it, on the local debate, there is this very volatile, fragile phase where we are seeing how Syria is going to go ahead in this transition. It's trying to define this social contract with the new draft of the constitution, which is going to actually work as the constitution for the coming 5 years until there is a final one and there is parliamentary elections. The draft was published recently, so perhaps we can dig a little bit more on that. And there is also this risk, Florence, I was mentioning about the diversity of the components of the society in Syria. We have to remember that for 14 years, Syria has been split with parallel realities. We're not in contact. We have an administration built by or led by the Kurds in the northeast. We have the Druze community in a sort of autonomy. We have the parts under the control of the regime. We have the rebel area in Idlib. And then we don't have to forget we have a fifth Syria who was a quarter of the society who was refugee, be it in the surrounded countries or in Europe. So all these components are now trying to make again a puzzle with pieces who have been separated for quite a long time. And we have seen the violence, the extreme violence, that happened in the Sahel, in the Latakia area, in Banias and Jeble, where 1,000 people lost their lives, hundreds of them civilians who have been killed, and then some combatants. So dragging from this recent reality, perhaps we can go to start with this building of the social contract, Salam. What is the main points of this draft of national constitutions? What has changed compared to the regime that was in place for 54 years? And what are the main takeaways and the next steps that you can see there?
Good morning. Thank you very much for this invitation. And I am sorry for my English, but as usual, I will try to be as clear as possible. In Syria, we had a constitution, not very bad, but the problem with the constitution in Syria since 1963, that nobody applied this constitution. The regime, Assad father and Assad son, had a good constitution, making by good jurists and constitutional specialists, but everything can happening outside the constitution. Now, dissolving the former constitution, it was symbolic to say we cut with the past and we need to engage a new process of thinking and applying a new constitution. But it was the result, it was very disappointing. We receive a document with contradiction, with some without any mention of democracy. In all the document for 54 article, you cannot find a word concerning democracy. You can found citizenship, yeah, liberty of expression, liberty of political party, liberty, but not democracy. I think it's translate the problem of all Islamic party with the word democracy. All the Islamic party believe that the Islam respect the democracy more than the Democrat because he talk about Shura. They put the name of Shura, it's consulting, on the place of democracy. Now it's not the end of the process, because what we win since 14 years under Assad repression and Assad bombarding and Assad massacres, we developed young and very active civil society in Syria and outside Syria. And all those groups will come back to Syria now. They start to come back to Syria. For example, I was involved in the foundation of the Day After. The Day After is a Syrian organization. We founded in 2012 in Berlin. And we spent all those years between Istanbul and Brussels. And now our team go back to Syria. And the day after, the main activity of the day after is thinking constitution, transitional justice, democratic election, what we need in Syria in the next few months. This and another positive point that Shara, Ahmed Shara, he don't believe himself like God, like Assad do it before. He recognized his mistake. And every time he make a mistake, the day after or some few days after, he returned about it and he said, I want to mean that, and I must understand it, and he accept the criticize. It's not very normal for a member of Islamist party, but he believe his mission different from the others. But we have a problem, a very dangerous one, that Ahmed Shara, he represents the moderate side of the HTC. We have a very rigorous and radical side with him inside his group, HTC, and more radicals.
Sorry, used to precise by HTS is Hayat Tahrir Al-Sham, which is 17 or so militias that were led by Ahmed Al-Shara before Col Al-Jolani. Just to precise for the people who are listening. Yeah.
And but you have also the problem of foreigner fighters, those who was engaged in the massacres in the coast in Sahel, coming from Uyghur, from Chechnya, from Uzbekistan, from Turkmenistan. Those one, it's a huge mission to found a solution to neutralization, to put them away from the Syrian process, because they are very dangerous guy. And now the option is the investigation about the massacres in the coast will produce a report to nominate those who are responsible of these massacres. And if in this report we can put the name of those groups, it will be opportunity for Shara to push them out. You see the situation, it's very complicated for him also, not only for the Syrians, for him, and of course repercussion on the Syrian issue. Ahmed Shara, all his men, it's not more than 35,000 fighters. Those 35,000 cannot control all Syria. He need participation of other group. For that, he signed with Kurd. He tried to sign with Druze. He tried to not push out the extreme radicals in his HTC, But if it's impossible to work with them, he will do it. He need also to resolve or to start to resolve the economic problem. And if the economic problem persists, the situation will be explosive. Because now Assad, he ran out from Syria with all the central bank reserve to Moscow, and Moscow received him also not only because he is a friend, but mainly because he come with good capital to invest in Putin interest. What is also a hope for the Syrians, that Sharia is not against multipartyism, pluralism in the political sphere. He said we will have a constitution who can be open for the installation of new political party. And the debate inside the society is very active, is very rich. You can find now papers wrote by Syrians inside Syria who criticize very strongly the economic policy, the security policy, the ideology of Sharia and his HTC. What is new for Syrians? For that, I am afraid that the Syrians will go far on this way, and now we need to go step by step. We need to avoid any provocation. We need to have security with a respectable agent of security, policeman, not with militia. The militia everywhere in the world, they don't have any ethic. They don't have any limit of repercussion. And also, the mistake of the government, it was to organize a national dialogue in 24 hours, inviting 1,000 people to go to Damascus in 24 hours only, to meet for 5 hours, to talk about a country who was destroyed and who was divided by 54 years of Assad. It's a joke. They invite me, they insist to invite me. I refuse, not because it was too late, it was only 24 hours before the meeting, but because national dialogue need or must be funded on small groups, more large, before to arrive to national dialogue. We don't invent something new. Many countries in the world, they know how to manage a national dialogue, and they want to do that in very quickly and to show the world that Syrians are in good.
Yeah. Let me move a little bit the focus on the Jenan. I will come back to you because there comes the role of the civil society. So before we move to this phase, which I think is it's one the direction you were going to dig in, let me move a little bit to Gabriel because you mentioned security. So you mentioned 3 important changes in respect to the previous regime, which is the promise of accountability. These include what happened in the Sahel, in Latakia, the possibility of criticize without going to jail, and also the pluralism political system. And you talk about security and the challenges. There is this problem now that, or how that is facing Ahmed al-Shara and Hayat Tahrir Al-Sham, which is the myriad of militias he was leading. We have to remember that Ahmed al-Shara was al-Jolani, who was the leader of al-Nusra and the local branch of Al-Qaeda. So there is the jihadist past of it. And this is why we're talking about the two trends of the moderate and more radicals within the Sunni militias and the Sunni perspective of the people who won the war now. So in this Hayat Tahrir Al-Sham, who has won the war now, you have these two tendency. One more radical who would like to see the Sharia and the Islamic law reigning in the country, and then who is more moderate and understand that there is other minorities. And this clashes with the 6 years of government that Jolani had in Idlib. And we cannot govern, this is what everyone comes to the conclusion, you cannot govern Syria like Hayat Tahrir Al-Sham was governing Idlib. And in Idlib, there was a lot of foreign influence. This is where we go to Gabriel. We leave aside the usual fights of the Shia, Sunnis, Iran, Turkey, the Gulf. And now, what is the impact of all these backers for these 14 years of war, who has been Turkey in one side, and Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, so the Gulf and Turkey, all these Sunni regional powers, this foreign influence, how is it shaping and how can it shape, and what is the competition that can be open that is going to determine also the path that Syria will take?
Right, many thanks for organizing this webinar and also inviting me. Before going into this kind of more international dimension, just let me say a couple of words about Salam's intervention. I think he was very pertinent. His words were very pertinent regarding the opportunities and the problems of Ahmed Shara and the whole national dialogue and the drafting of a preliminary constitution. I think there are lots of things to let's say equilibrate here, and it's a big game for him to start putting all the pieces together and make them work together. I mean, we cannot forget the context of a 14-year civil war, 50 years of a specific system that was particularly brutal in political terms. And therefore, even if we would like to see in this preliminary constitution more checks and balance, less concentration of power in terms of the executive, potentially other kinds of language regarding confessions or pluralism, I think there are lots of audiences that Ahmed Shara is trying to appease. I think that the country, as Salam was saying, needs some sort of state stability first, although we would like to see a proper constitution some years down the road that includes democracy and parliamentarism. But I think now the equilibrium is a bit dire. And this brings me to the security issue, which I think is absolutely central. Absolutely central. I mean, the fact that Ahmed Shara sits in the presidential palace in Damascus does not mean that he has absolute control of the country, first thing. Second thing, of the armed forces, which is even more problematic, I would say, because as you were saying before, yes, Hayat Tahrir Al-Sham has been especially remarkably powerful, let's say, in security terms. We saw that in Idlib. But now Ahmed Shara is trying to articulate a proper national army. And you have all these small bits and pieces. You've got the Syrian National Army, which is Turkey-backed Syrian rebels up north, clashing with Kurdish factions in numerous occasions. You've got also other more radical factions close to Hayat Tahrir Al-Sham, some of them even causing the sectarian massacres that we saw in Latakia, Jable, Banias, and so on and so forth some weeks ago. So this is the, let's say, internal security situation where Ahmed Shara is trying to unite all these small pieces into a proper national army. And this is not even counting the Druze and the Kurds up north, which both of them are putting different pressures, even Dara, different pressures regarding this centralization of the state, centralization of security forces, We saw a very remarkable, I would say, agreement with the Syrian Democratic Forces, Kurdish-led forces in the northeast. But again, similarly to what happened with the constitution that Salam was saying before, okay, the paper is nice, but then you have to implement it. The same happens with the agreement with the Kurds, for instance. Now, it was very vague, very general. Some broad notions of integration into the armed forces, but we don't know how this will play out actually on the ground, which is, by the way, the thing that matters. And we saw the Druze, important tensions within the community. Israel, of course, here is exploiting as much as they can. They always do. And they've seen the Syrian scenario as one providing both opportunities and challenges, or insecurities, they will call it. And they are trying to capitalize on the opportunities. And I think that, let's say, pulling the Druze community apart was a strategy for them to articulate some sort of buffer zone in the south, put problems into Shara in his quest of organizing a centralized security force system. But we're showing also the I would say the vast majority of the Druze community that commits to Syrian nationalism, Syrian identity, and of course wants to work together in difference, but work together with Damascus in articulating this new country. So the Syrian civil war has always been about an interplay between the local, the domestic, the regional, and the international. We saw that from day one. All of these dimensions fit into the other. There is no neat separation between these levels of analysis. They have always been all together in the affairs and on the ground. And we're seeing the same now. We're seeing how Ahmed Shara is trying to capitalize and strengthen his control of the state apparatus and the security forces. At the same time, is trying to appease the different constituencies of the Syrian body, the more democratic, the more conservative, the more liberal, the minorities, the Sunni majority. And at the same time, he's trying to navigate, and all Syrians are trying to navigate, this massive regional and international development. I mentioned Israel regarding the Druze, but then you see Israeli bombing of Damascus, by the way, and a very important incursion from the Golan towards Damascus. We saw even an airstrike into Daraa in the south very recently. Then we see, of course, the position of Turkey and the position of Saudi Arabia. Now, Turkey has been very adamant, of course, of this new regime, has been supportive, has been one of the main powers behind Hayat Tahrir Al-Sham assault to Aleppo and then later towards Damascus. Without the Turkish green light, potentially Ahmed Shara would have never moved towards Aleppo. And of course, this opens new opportunities for also other countries in this, let's call it Sunni Middle East, if you want to say so. I think Saudi Arabia and Ahmed Shara are trying to get a proper rapprochement. Even Ahmed Shara has highlighted his will to collaborate with Saudi Arabia and visited Saudi Arabia as well. Of course, there's a big challenge here between Qatar and Saudi Arabia. And it's going to be very interesting to know what the position of the Emirates is in this whole thing, because as far as I know, the Emirates have been potentially one of the countries in this Sunni bloc, if you want to say so, that has expressed more discontent, some reserves, potentially even some disagreements, and the situation in Daraa in the south is not particularly nice. But it's true also, and this is potentially a big transformation in the recent decade in the Middle East, how Iran and even Russia reacted to the new man in the presidential palace. The fact that Russia was not able but also didn't want to, engage in a war when Hayat Tahrir Al-Sham advanced towards Damascus, and the absolute incapability, I would say, of Iran to put pressure in that regard in itself is very telling. Now we're potentially moving towards the Middle East that potentially is less based on this Saudi Arabia Iranian tension that we saw very clearly in the Syrian civil war, in Yemen also, and potentially we're moving towards another kind of Middle East. I think Israel here is going to be an interesting player, of course, to observe in the Syrian matrix, and definitely Ahmed Shara and the future of Syria is still very much dependent on the regional and international dimension. And I think Salam would agree into that. One of the biggest concerns of Syrian civil society and Syrians more broadly, both within Syria and also outside Syria, is the fact that even if Syria has been freed from Assad, there is still the feeling or potentially the worry that Syrians still don't have full capacity to decide how the country works, how the country looks like, and where the country is heading to. This is still very much embedded in international politics and international decisions. And this, of course, limits the kind of things that we can see.
Thank you so much, Gabriel, for this more overview. So we zoom in and out. Let's stay a little bit on the international. Esfer used to talk with Salam about the civil society. And you mentioned reconstruction before, Sanem also mentioned it, but let's talk also about return. We are talking about a country that half of the 23 millions of per world of inhabitants are displaced, and 1/4 are refugees, so outside of the country. I'm thinking now about the civil society who has been very active, especially those who were in Turkey with 3.5 million. In Lebanon, there is 1.5. In Jordan, there is less than 1 million. In Europe, 1 million. But those in Europe and Turkey, perhaps they have been very active. So it's not only returning to their houses, it's not just a movement to go back, which, by the way, surrounded countries are trying to incentivize the return. We always say there was not a safe return. So what are the conditions for the return, and what this refugee community is going to bring back to see what is the role to play? I was there for 3 weeks now in Syria, and I always heard about cautious hope. So I saw a lot of refugees coming back to see. 1 week, 2 weeks, they see, but they didn't decide yet if they are going back. They always say that the word in town is like Ahmed Al-Shara is a very pragmatic. So this is what goes there. And the other idea that always goes around is like they want to see the words in actions. So this is what I heard about everyone who is trying to go. What is the role of the civil society inside and outside? Is this something that is getting together, this dialogue? And what is the conditions for the return, Salam?
We need to make the difference between refugees in Europe and refugees in the region. It's a huge difference. The return first can start with those who are in the region because they live in very bad situation in Jordan, in Lebanon, and also some of them, they are not in good situation in Turkey. Those who live in Europe, they start a new life. They work. Majority of them work, are integrated in the trade, in the market of their country. In Germany, you have more than 6,000 doctors in medicine who are involved in the hospital, in the medical sphere. it will be very difficult for them to leave everything and go back to Syria. But even if the return are open and decided by everyone, they need infrastructure, they need electricity, they need water, they need internet, they need everything basic in the life, and all those things don't exist anymore in Syria. The regime, when he bombarded the cities in Syria and all the country, he target mainly the school and the hospital. More than 60% of the health sector is destroyed. You have more than 50% of the school are destroyed. The return need to rebuild all those things. When we talk about reconstruction in Syria, we need to think about the basic needs. And also we need to think about the reconstruction of the social cohesion, because even if we pretend that Syrians used to live together and they didn't have any problem between community and between ethnicity, it's a little bit folkloric, because in reality, even before Assad, the society are divided. And because the Ottomans, who was controlling Syria before 1920, they used the division to better control the situation. The French mandate, they did the same things. And the regime of Assad, he reinforced the division in the society to better control and to have a quite atmosphere to control everything. The social reconstruction, for me, it's more important than the material reconstruction. But nobody wants to talk about that, because we believe, even individually, all Syrians, they lie, how to say, they lie to themselves. They said, no, we don't have a problem with Christian. No, we don't have a problem with Muslim. No, we don't have a problem with Kurd. We have a problem. Perhaps not me, not Gabriel, but ordinary people have a problem. It's a question of culture. It's a question of education. It's a question of how we build the citizenship. In Syria, we till now we are subject of the power. We are not citizen. The citizenship, it's we must teach the citizenship, the belonging to a nation, how to belong to a nation, not because we are Christian or we are Muslim, we are Arab or we are Turk, Kurd, everything, because we are Syrians. The time where all the Syrians they will believe that the Syrianity is more important than their tribal or religious or confessional belongs, we can hope that Syria can be rebuilt and the future will be better.
Thank you, Salam. So indeed, I mean, we have a tendency to see that the war in Syria was stagnated in its international side, but we tend to forget there's a civil war and that there is this need of reconstruction of the social fabric, as you mentioned. Reconstruction is the main file, is what Syrians say. We want a job, we want water, we want electricity. They 2 hours electricity in Damascus. Some areas don't have drinking water. There are no jobs. So, Gabriel, how can what can be the role of international community? And by here, I mean, of course, Europe and the US, but also the region. I mean, Turkey, Saudi, the neighboring countries. What can be this role? What are the promises? And everyone was waiting for the day after to say, yes, we'll contribute to the reconstruction. Well, now we're in the day after. And how are these actors moving now?
I mean, one of the things that we tend to forget is that post-conflict reconstructions are as political and problematic than conflicts themselves. And especially in let's say 21st century conflicts, it's even more evident that there is no clear differentiation between war and post-war, or the dynamics of warfare and then reconstruction. We saw that in Syria very clearly. I mean, the Assad regime started a reconstruction project or a vision for reconstruction, but that vision for reconstruction was incredibly weaponized. It touched upon, as Salam said, the deep differences within the Syrian society. Some areas were reconstructed out of favor or not reconstructed out of punishment. And reconstruction was framed in a scheme in which only those that were supporting the Assad regime were able to participate, mostly Russia, Iran, and China. And there was another layer that was even more Machiavellic, which was to relate reconstruction with the diplomatic rehabilitation of Assad and the return of the refugees. So the argument was, if you rebuild the country, then the country is a secure country, then Assad can be rehabilitated diplomatically, and then refugees can go back. This, of course, all imploded in December 2024. And now we see another scheme of reconstruction, potentially speaking, in which technically it will be an international reconstruction framework. It means that other actors, and not only those favorable to specific government, can participate. We see how the European Union is expanding their pledge of funding towards Syria. We see very recently in Brussels the donor conference. We're seeing also other debates of Gulf countries, Turkey putting more effort into the reconstruction. I think Turkey will play a leading role in that regard. They wanted to play that leading role with Assad. That was not possible, and potentially is one of the explanations for the fast insurgency of Hayat Tahrir Al-Sham. But the issue again is, where do you start? How you engage in reconstruction, and how you navigate with the material reconstruction, the social reconstruction that Salam was mentioning before. In some conversations I was able to have in that regard, I think that the feeling was that both Homs and Aleppo will be interesting testing grounds, because both areas give precisely this huge connection between the social identitarian dynamic and the need for material reconstruction. Both Aleppo and Homs are massively destroyed, especially Aleppo, and both areas have an enormous amount of religious and ethnic diversity. We've got Alawites and Christians in Homs, we've got Christians in Aleppo and Kurds in Aleppo, and that means that these two areas are very interesting grounds for a model of reconstruction that is open, that is plural, and that again, it receives input from civil society. If this is a model, if we're going towards a model of reconstruction that is top down, that is more related to external interests, that waving together the fabric of the Syrian people, we are just falling into the same trap over and over again. I think that our Lebanese colleagues have given us interesting examples to reflect. I think the Solidaire-driven reconstruction of post-war Beirut gives a very clear sense that reconstruction can be deeply problematic in political terms. I think Bosnia also has interesting lessons to learn from. both positive and negative. And it's still to be seen if Ahmed Shara is able to articulate this white national reconstruction in a way that sounds fair and interesting for Syrian people, or again, reconstruction becomes just chit chat, and still the country is in rubbles, at least in some areas. So still a long way to go here.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. It's a very interesting point and very important one, how politics and reconstruction, so how it's intertwined. Thank you very much for both of you. I mean, we had the time to throw some of the ideas. Many we didn't have time to tackle, but the floor is open for those who are on the other side. If you want to share in the chat any specific questions for any of the specific panelists. I don't know if we can see them in the chat. I have a chat that says host and panelists. So I don't know if I can say, so far I cannot see any questions. I don't know if any colleague from the technical support can see any, but I can't. So please take the advantage to have here these very knowledgeable experts to share your questions. I have one that I can throw. Meanwhile, anyone decides, we still have like 5 minutes. I don't know if we can pass a few minutes from one, but please do not be shy and share your questions. I have one on the narrative because we are talking about politics, about security, but there is, I mean, Syria has been the war of the era of globalization, and we have seen with the violence on the Sahel, on the Latakia, Banias, and Jeble, the power of the narrative and how this bipolarization of the Syrians themselves, which makes it very palpable what Salam was saying, that everyone say, yeah, we like Druze, Christian, Sunni, Shia, but at the end of the day, there's these divisions. I can see a question, so I will leave my question or narrative on the side. Lana Kaskaz, who's asking, I would like to ask if we go back to the reason why the Hayat Tahrir Al-Sham were able to take the country in 1 week. Many talk about that Russia didn't want to support al-Assad more, but I would like to hear the opinion of why and why now. So this is a very interesting question. I have the tendency to throw it to Gabriel, being on the international arena, but of course, Salam, you can comment afterwards also if you want to talk about this. And I still encourage the rest of viewers if they want to share a question. Thank you.
Right, thank you for the question. I'll be quick so that we can have more time for other questions or comments. I think there were a collision of different reasons and motives. I think that on the one hand, Hayat Tahrir Al-Sham was mounting and being able to assemble all this military force and discipline in Idlib for some time. The fact that the Idlib province was isolated from other areas of the country, in a sense, fostered that sense of cohesion within the group. That's one thing. Second thing, the Assad regime, while having the former control of the rest of the country, or most of the country, on the ground, that control was a bit shallow. So in terms of socio-economics, the country was very, very bad in an awful moment. So in terms of loyalty, you know that loyalty is not just simply controlling the space. You need to believe that the one that is controlling you deserves to control the space. So I think that in that loyalty was a bit more difficult to justify. Even within the Assad security forces, there has been massive division within. Don't forget that different militias, some of them funded by Russia, others by militias and groups, Russia, Iran, and others, not always have moved in the same direction. We saw that in Aleppo very clearly. And then you have, of course, the external dimension. Now, Assad was so dependent, I would say, on Hezbollah, Russia, and Iran, so dependent. The control of the country was so dependent on these actors that the very moment that these actors have other concerns in mind, and potentially Russia was tired of having to rescue Assad for this much time. At the moment where the challenge was mounted, the decision was very difficult. Hezbollah did not have the capacity, evidently why. Iran didn't have the capacity, and I'm not sure that Russia had the capacity nor the will to actually go there and support in another round of war. Simply, they took the phone, spoke to Ahmed Shara, and the very moment they were able to secure the naval bases and other concerns, that was it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I will add, if I may, I cannot refrain myself from adding that there is a very special conjuncture that happened, and it was the weakness of Iran with Hezbollah given to the Israel attack in Lebanon and the war that they were waging. And of course, the change of the administration in the US with Trump and rapprochement with Putin that derivated with an Ukrainian deal that's in a global area as we are, has an impact in Syria. So these two international components, Ukraine and the war, I mean, the fragility of the planes of Russia who helped Assad regime to survive in 2015, and the boots of Iran through Hezbollah that saved the regime in 2012, they were not there. If I may, sorry, I cannot refrain myself from doing the comment. We have two more questions. Whoever wants to leave, of course, is free to leave, but whoever wants to remain here, I think we still have 5 minutes, unless anyone tell me otherwise. Lourdes Vidal, hola Lourdes. I want to thank you all for this great talk. Could you please talk more about Israel ambitions in Syrian territory regarding the social fabric reconstructions? Are there any perspective for transitional justice? I guess I'm tempted to direct to Salam the question regarding fabric reconstruction, social fabric reconstruction and transitional justice, and then perhaps we can take with Gabriel on Israel if he wants. Or you can take it too.
I can take also, I can give you my opinion on Israel ambition. Israel want a divided Syria. They believe, they don't care if it's Islamist or not Islamist power, but they want a Durzi country, they want a Alawi country, they don't want a Kurdish country, and they want a Sunni country. Last days, we hear more and more about a new project of concerning Gaza, the deportation of the people of Gaza. The project of Trump can be oriented to Syria, because Syria needs money and ask for help. And after the reject of Jordan and Egypt, perhaps Syria can be the place when the 2 million of Palestinians from Gaza can be deported to outside of Palestine. Also, Israel, as other Arab countries like Egypt, like Emirates, they have afraid from any successful example of changing a regime. All the counter-revolution in Egypt, in Libya, in Tunisia, in everywhere was supported by Emirates and by Israel. They need to be the only democracy in the region in general. For the justice, transitional justice, I think, as I said before, the Syrian civil society start to talk about transitional justice since 2011. We have now a base of literature, of books, of knowledge about civil society, about transitional justice in the civil society, more than a professor in the law faculty. And the idea it's inject in all the mind of Syrians. And I think it's very possible to apply, to engage this process in Syria, but as everywhere, transitional justice cannot resolve all the problems. It's a part of the resolution of problem, but not all the problems.
Thank you, Salam. I'm going to read the last question. I think we leave it there because I think it's an important question, and both Gabriel and Salam can respond to it. I will reverse it. So, Ana Ballesteros, thank you for your question, because there is a question that has not been posed for 14 years. And the question is, what do Syrians want now? Now is finally someone is asking the Syrians what they want, and how willing are they to keep fighting, or more inclined to an imperfect peace. So this, I think, is the key question to make now for this transition in Syria and the future of the country. And I will reverse, taking the first bit of her question, which was which countries could contribute as a positive influence, and which countries have a higher stake. So, Gabriel, if you can go on, perhaps Salam can also complement.
Very quickly, on terms of positive role models, I'm not sure. I mean, I think I have to think about it, because one, is inclined after the Arab Spring to say Tunisia, but no longer. Egypt, why? And you can see other cases around the region. I mean, of course, the Turkish model sounds, well, something to put on the table, in a sense that it is incredibly imperfect, has a massive tendency towards authoritarian politics, but even in that circumstance, there are elements that are interesting, potentially, for the Syrian experience. Whether that, me particularly, I like it or not, that's another thing. But in general terms, I can't think of many role models around the region. I think it's a bad time for role models in world politics in general. And just a final note that adds a layer of interesting personal story here. I met Salam in Paris some time ago when I was starting my PhD, and I remember I asked him about the dynamics of political identity in Syria. And I still remember today the answer that he gave me. And he said, "Why are you talking about political identities? There were none. There was no political identity. There was a regime. And that meant, as he said before, you were subject of power. And that's it. No room for identity." I think this is a massive transformation now. And I think that after 14 years of war, Syrian civil society and Syrians abroad know perfectly well that they have this very much in mind, the possibility of being a plural country and disagreeing with power. And this is part of politics. If my government does something that I don't like, I have the capacity to say, I don't like, and criticism. And I think that we need to capitalize on that.
Thank you, Gabriel. I have to say that I have done dozens of interviews, and one of the things amazing is, like, Syrians say we will not allow to go back to the system before now. Too many aspirations have built up during this year for change, and they are not going to give up. And they are going to demonstrations on the street already. The minute something doesn't please them, they are ready to stop it. So this is, I think, very important. Salam, would you comment on that?
I think Syrians want to live and to work and to like a human being, like everywhere in the world, in the normal world. They don't want to make a war, not against themselves and neither against their neighbor. They are a little bit I think it will be very difficult for political party to implement their activity in the future Syria, because I think Syrians are very tired from politics and from all those debate and from all those ideology. We need, I think the reconstruction, we have a lot of work to reconstruct everything. Spirit, to reconstruct building, to reconstruct society, everything need to be reconstructed.
Thank you so much, Salam. Thank you so much for everyone for your interest on Syria, for trying to put Syria on the table, on the debate. There's much to talk. For Yemed, for organizing this, for giving the opportunity. So I'm going to give the last word to Florenza if he wants to say something to close it here. But of course, you can follow on social media, Gabriel and Salam, so you can, I'm sure they will be delighted to respond any further questions that you may have. Thank you to both. It was very insightful conversation. I hope we'll continue it also behind the screen. So thank you so much to both of you. Florenza?
Well, thank you very much, Natalia, and thank you very much, Salam. Thank you very much, Gabriel, and especially thank you very much for everybody that's been following this exercise of thinking together about the future and how difficult it will be. But nevertheless, we have to contribute from all different angles. And I hope that these debates of AFCAR debates, along with the analysis expressed in the different articles and in our magazine and our review of AFCAR ideas can contribute to that. We are a large community of people who are interested in Euro-Mediterranean affairs, and especially Middle East affairs. And I think it is our duty really to contribute the best we can to this enormous endeavor that requires the help of everybody to reconstruct just a livable world in that part of our planet. So thank you very much, all of you, for your contribution. Especially Natalia, thank you for being with us, and Salam and Gabriel. Thank you. Bye-bye.